For the videos on this channel, we don't use any We've also built a completely custom web UI that lets us take on an AI era challenge.
It took a long time to check each one by.
For the videos on this channel, we don't use any video editing software at all.
And we're not using any of the trendy video generation AI either.
Right. All we use is a single JSON file built through coding. This video you're watching right now was also built from a single JSON file. That JSON contains everything the video needs. That includes the dialogue, who's speaking, the slides shown during each line, the BGM, the background, and the section names. We just feed it into the system, and it assembles into the video you always see. We've also built a completely custom web UI for editing. Everything from making thumbnails to editing dialogue can be done right there on that screen.
As a genre, this falls into the same category as the typical Yukuri-style narrated commentary videos.
We put absolutely no effort into the hardest part of editing, sequencing the dialogue, switching speakers, and setting up subtitles.
That means we can focus more on refining the script and content instead.
On top of that, we've made every element translatable. That lets us take on an AI era challenge, generating videos in 10 languages at once.
This time, we're going to show you this whole unique production process.
First, let me walk you through the whole picture, from kicking off a project to finishing the video.
The very first step is deciding on a topic.
We pick topics from technology the creator uses at work, or things spotted on social media. We also pick topics from tech tried out over the weekend. Once the topic is set, we think through who the video is for and what we want to convey. That gets turned into text as marked down through voice transcription. This is the actual starting point of production.
Based on that, an AI agent does detailed research on the subject, organizing information and checking evidence.
Once the materials are gathered, we decide on the video structure based on the topic and materials. Then we build the script. We run an AI review to check whether the flow of the dialogue or the character's portrayal feels off. Then the creator reviews it themselves using a dedicated web UI and makes fixes. Next, we create the visuals, slides, and diagrams to show on screen and assign them to each line.
Once all that's ready, we use custom-built TTS models for our two characters. Those generate the audio file for each line.
At the same time, we generate images for the thumbnail based on the script and topic. Then we add text to complete it.
Once the script is finished, we set up the opening digest and the intro. Then we set up the outro, cutaway inserts, and the video background.
Once we get this far, it turns into JSON code like this, and the system can output it as a video. Once the main video is done this way, we also make a short-form video as a condensed version of it. The basic method is the same. We build JSON just like for the main video, but we adjust the layout and pace for short-form videos.
Once the main video and the short are both finished in Japanese, we fully translate every script. Then we produce the remaining 9 languages.
After that, we render it into an MP4 file and post it to each channel. Each step is handled by a dedicated AI agent, and AI does the first check on the output too.
On top of that, human review is worked into each step where it's needed.
We'll go through each of these parts one by one: script writing, visual creation, video editing, and thumbnail creation. We'll also cover short-form video creation and localization. Let's dive into each of them. So first, let's talk about script writing.
The very starting point is the creator putting the topic into words themselves.
Right. We just keep listing out things we're curious about or want to share, entirely through voice input.
Things like, how is this different from similar services? Or how does this mechanism actually work?
Sometimes the topic comes from knowledge the creator felt they needed to absorb. Other times it comes from the creator's own personal experience.
All of that gets written up in Markdown, and that becomes the seed of the project.
From there, we work with AI to sort out who the target audience is and what information we should convey.
Once the direction is set, a research agent traces sources and investigates everything we listed.
The materials come back, organized with evidence attached. A separate checking agent reviews the contents.
Once that's done, we work out a draft structure for the video. We put into words each section's name and what it's meant to convey.
Once that's done, A human checks the content through the web UI. If it's drifted far from what we actually wanted to explain, or from the topic's original intent, we go back to the drawing board. We often end up rewriting it several times at this stage.
Once the structure is locked in, we build a JSON for each section. We write out our dialogue character by character in back and forth form.
Each line of dialogue is data made up of several fields.
There's a field for which character is speaking, and a field specifying what expression to use for that line. You pick from types like surprised or smug.
Plus the text shown on screen as subtitles. The script gets built up out of data like this. For generating the script, we switch between Claude and Codex depending on the process or the video.
Actually, if you look closely at our past videos, some scenes make it pretty obvious which model or service was used.
The dialogue also goes through an AI review. It checks whether the characters are off-model, whether the tone sounds wrong, or whether the logic breaks down. After that, a human reads through it and checks it in the web UI.
Our personalities and tone of voice are documented as character profiles, and the review checks against that.
It's not just the content of the dialogue that gets adjusted here. Nuance and length of tone, who speaks, and what expression to use also get adjusted here. Next is creating the visuals shown on screen to match the dialogue.
By visuals, we mean the slides and diagram images being shown behind us right now.
For each line in the script, we decide what to display on screen during that line. It takes the form of adding a visual element field to each line of the JSON we made during script writing. When that line is read aloud, the visual appears on screen.
In terms of numbers, we make around 30 to 40 per 10-minute video.
Our policy here is that we don't let AI create these with a lot of freedom. We've prepared a large number of types in advance: slides, diagrams, code blocks, graphs, and so on. The AI picks whichever type fits the line and fits it into the template with minimal changes. That's the mechanism we use.
For example, there are 2-column slides for comparisons. There are also code diff displays, terminal output screens, and more.
There are also types for showing X posts and GitHub repository info cards. There are star, count trend graphs, and stat cards for showing numbers too.
It's basically a full set of the display styles commonly used in tech introduction videos.
For diagrams that don't fit neatly into a template, we've prepared a number of specific layout patterns. We've also prepared specific component patterns.
They are built by picking from those and combining them. Each one of these types was built so its style doesn't break down no matter the character count or wording. It took a long time to check each one by human eye, and it's basically the culmination of this whole system.
We don't let AI create from scratch. Instead, we deliberately have it choose from a limited, well-maintained set of options. Narrowing the range of choices like that is what we think leads to stable, improving quality. A common approach elsewhere is to generate the slide images themselves with image generation AI. We don't use that method in our videos.
That kind of slide making tends to act as if cramming in as much information as possible is the goal. It ends up cluttered.
Exactly. The creator feels those kinds of visuals just aren't suited for explaining things clearly.
Also, whenever we need an operation video or a screenshot, we identify that need at this stage. Then we either shoot it by hand or capture it using AI skills built for filming.
We have a variety of skills for this. For example, one scrolls to a specific page and shoots a video that highlights a certain piece of text or element. We pick whichever skill fits and use it to do the filming.
Checking isn't just done by human eye, we take separate screenshots of every visual. A dedicated agent then reviews those for overflow, overlap, and other issues.
The creator also checks the look themselves and touches up any diagram that's hard to understand. Once all this is written into the JSON, this step is complete. Next up is video editing. The whole editing system is built on Remotion, a technology that lets you assemble and render video with code. Once the script and visuals are ready, we start by generating the voice audio for the dialogue.
For the audio, we use our own custom TTS models built for the 2 characters. We generate every line into a file all at once.
In Remotion, you have to strictly define the duration of every single scene in frames.
So we calculate each line's duration from the playback length of its generated audio file.
Stacking those up from the start determines exactly which frame each line begins on.
Subtitles, lip sync, and visual transitions are all synced to that same timing.
In other words, the audio file's length is literally the basis for duration in this whole editing pipeline.
So if we ever want a deliberately silent scene, we have to manually adjust the duration for it.
By the way, we're original characters made for this channel, and we were created with Nano Banana.
Out of hundreds, sometimes over 1,000 generated outputs, only the designs we genuinely loved made the cut.
Having our own original characters like this is part of what sets the channel apart, I think. We each have a set of expression variants and mouth shape variants as images. Those get swapped in and out to animate us. The mouth only moves while that character is actually speaking, and the expression switches based on the emotion tagged in the script.
Whoever's speaking bounces slowly up and down, so it's always clear who's talking.
It's a small detail, but little touches like that are what make things feel alive, so I don't want to skip them. Honestly, I'd love to add blinking too. But making separate assets for every expression variant is tough, so we haven't gotten there yet. The background isn't a static image either. It's always some kind of animation.
We've quietly put a lot of care into that one. We've made and tried out a ton of variations. We're up to around 20 of them now. If you're curious, go compare a few of our older videos.
A video is fundamentally just a huge number of still images switched in sequence. Remotion renders each of those individual frames using React. And each component gets passed a number telling it exactly which frame it's currently on.
On a normal web page, the standard way to add motion is CSS animation.
But Remotion renders each frame independently, so CSS animations that just run on their own over time basically don't work here. Instead, you have to use the current frame number to calculate the position and opacity for that exact instant. You do this every single time you build a screen.
Those 20 background animations and our up and down bounce too, it's all driven by calculations from the frame number.
Subtitles and visuals are just the result of asking what should show on this frame, so they stay perfectly in sync with the audio timeline. Remotion actually comes with its own dedicated editing UI, but we don't use that either.
We built the preview into our own custom web UI, and that's where we check everything.
Adjusting the position of visuals and subtitles, or adding motion, that's usually the most tedious part of manual editing. But back when we were building out the templates, we carefully reviewed a bunch of different expressions by eye and tuned them properly. So now motion gets applied with almost no manual touch at all.
We can also shrink the characters down on purpose and let an image or diagram fill the whole screen instead.
Yeah, also, the volume for BGM and sound effects is set on a per-file basis, and each character has their own tuned speaking speed and volume. As for how the whole video comes together, it opens with a short digest. That digest picks out around 4 lines that seem like the most important moments in the video, and those get previewed before the main content starts.
The opening, ending, eye catches, and video background all get placed following a fixed set of rules.
Then the finished JSON gets fed into the system, which exports it as an MP4.
If something needs fixing, we just edit the JSON and export again.
We're not using video generation AI at all, so there's no cost for generating the footage itself.
The whole production wraps up within subscription-based CLI services like Claude Code and Codex.
Keeping running costs down means we can focus on the actual content. The JSON gets schema validated with a library called Zod, so we catch missing settings or mistakes right away. And for subtitles, there's a script that checks whether the text overflows the screen, so that gets caught automatically too. We also auto-generate the chapter timestamps that go in the description.
Each section's start time is figured out mechanically, just by stacking up the audio lengths. So we never have to write those by hand.
Next up is making the thumbnail. We don't use image editing software like Canva or Photoshop for thumbnails either. A common approach out there is generating a thumbnail with ImageGen AI that already includes all the text in one shot.
But we basically don't do that.
YouTube itself even has a feature called Generate Video Thumbnail. but using that just produces a thumbnail that screams AI generated. It tends to end up cluttered, with a design where it's unclear what it's even trying to say. And I don't think that kind of thing is good.
So for thumbnails, we don't fully automate it. There's a fair amount of hands-on human adjustment involved.
First, we generate several background image patterns with AI, and pick the one we like best by eye. For the text, AI suggests a few candidate options, but the final call is made by a human.
We actually skip the AI suggestions and write original copy pretty often too.
The text on a thumbnail is capped at 2 sentences. I don't think you should cram in 3 or more. We drop the characters into the chosen background and text, and adjust the text placement and layout with a custom thumbnail editor we built into the web UI.
As for the final thumbnail data, which image, which text, and how it's positioned, that's captured too. All of it gets packed into a single JSON.
Thanks to that, we can produce thumbnails in other languages using the exact same layout. We do have a feature that lets us edit the thumbnail per language.
But we basically only craft the Japanese version and translate the rest mechanically. Yeah, it barely ever comes into play.
Next up is making the shorts. Once the main video is done, we also make a vertical shorts version every time, as a condensed version of it.
It works as an entry point to get people interested in the main video.
The process is the same as the main video. We build a JSON for the shorts version and render it through the same system. That said, the layout and pacing are adjusted for a vertical screen. For the script, we pull out the highlights from the main video's script and restructure them into a short format.
It's a hook at the start, then the highlights, then a lead into the main video.
This also goes through both an AI review and a human check. It's a short video, but demand for shorts is so high these days that it really matters. So we sometimes end up rewriting the script several times over.
The visuals are also defined one by one specifically for shorts, just like with the main video.
And the subtitle positions are all designed by AI too, so things hold up reasonably well no matter what content goes in.
We generate a separate thumbnail for the shorts version too.
That said, I think it's still pretty rough around the edges. And I want to keep searching for the right format to explain a piece of tech concisely in shorts form. Separate from the condensed version of the main video, there's something else we tried. There was a stretch where we also made shorts covering daily IT news.
But gathering fresh information every day on top of the main video turned out to be way too much effort, so it got tough.
So right now we're thinking about a different approach. We're planning to keep trying new things like this going forward. Next up is localization. Once we finish the main video and the shorts in Japanese, we translate them into 9 languages:
English, Chinese, Korean, German, French, Russian, Portuguese, Spanish, and Italian.
And it's not just the dialogue that gets translated. Text inside the visuals, the thumbnail copy, the title, the description, every element of the video is set up to be translatable.
That's only possible because everything is managed as JSON.
We don't just leave the translation to AI either. It goes through a dedicated review. We check whether each character's tone holds up and whether the translation reads naturally. We also check whether it's faithful to the original meaning.
Having a human check every single language just isn't realistic, so we cover that gap with a system instead.
The audio also gets generated in each language and rendered through the same system. It's then posted to each language's channel.
We only translate and roll out content that's already passed the human check on the Japanese version.
Also, running all 10 languages through a high-end AI model would get very expensive, so we use a high-performance model for steps that need creativity, and a lighter model for fixed mechanical work like translation.
On top of that, if we just threw the whole JSON at the AI, we'd waste tokens.
So we only extract the parts that actually need translating, like the dialogue and other text. We pass just that along.
The prompt's core structure is shared across every language too, with only the language-specific differences slotted in. So we avoid burning tokens unnecessarily.
Last thing, let's talk about improving the system. Script fixes, tweaks to titles and descriptions, corrections to the visuals. Every change a human makes gets logged.
So it's not just a one-off fix, it stays around as data.
Take titles for example. The AI's drafts tend to be vague and abstract. like the age of X has arrived, and a human keeps stepping in to swap that for the actual tool name or something concrete. That correction kept happening over and over.
And when you analyze the logs, that kind of pattern shows up.
So whatever pattern we spot gets fed back into the generation prompts and the review criteria. The idea is to fix the system itself, so a human doesn't have to make the same correction twice.
And whenever something goes wrong, that failure gets worked into the review criteria too. So the same mistake gets less and less likely to happen again.
What the AI review flags also gets logged, and that becomes material for improving the review itself. Thanks to that, the amount a human has to fix keeps going down with each round.
And lately, whatever the creator personally wants to learn about gets turned into a video with this same system. It's used as a kind of private study video made just for them.
It's like getting your own personal video, explaining some tech you're curious about. It's narrated by the usual two of us.
Since only the creator watches those, they're easy to make casually and churn out in bulk.
So more videos get made than actually get published, and that means the improvement loop runs even more. Every single video involves some trial and error, and the system keeps growing because of it. And that's the whole flow of how we make our videos.
I'd be happy if this made you think, wow, you can do this much without even touching editing software.
Let's talk a bit about what's next. 2. Being able to turn whatever you're curious about into your own personal video is genuinely fascinating. So I'm experimenting with whether this could become a service, or maybe go open source.
We'll cover it on this channel soon, so look forward to it.
I also want to try doing a live stream, chatting casually, taking comments from you all, and digging deeper into the tech together.
Not just tech either. Every once in a while I'd love to show off some of the gadgets we use.
Rather than bringing on a real human host, we're looking into how to work the two of us into a live stream properly.
AI and tech are only going to keep changing faster, and I think keeping up is going to get harder.
We want to keep working to become one of the ways people can make sense of it all.
If you enjoyed this, a subscribe and a like would mean a lot to us.
And if there's anything else you'd like us to cover, let us know in the comments.
Look forward to more from Sharina and Renka.
See you next time!